Welcome to the road to 1 million US dollars. In this video today, guys, I have a whole bunch of new breakout patterns for you guys for the Bitcoin charts, of course. So we have a whole lot of ground to cover. Either way, I wanted to start off with a quick shout out to CryptoKiki, who is a member of the community, and she just started doing Bitcoin technical analysis videos, as well as the fact that she posts on a completely different schedule than mine. Either way, I just thought maybe we can get her to like a couple hundred subscribers here on the channel. And you guys obviously get a lot of value because you have her video at a completely different time than you would get my video. So you basically have Bitcoin coverage at any time of the day. And of course, as always, I'm going to post a link in the pinned comment of this video if you guys want to go ahead and subscribe to her. Either way, like I said, we have a lot of ground to cover. I know that this is a pretty messy chart, so we're just going to go through things one by one. Recently, we were looking at this symmetrical triangle pattern. Now, this broke out to the downside. We saw a decent size move to the downside here, about 7%. However, since then, we actually confirmed a bullish divergence on the 30-minute time frame. As you can see right here, we have lower lows in the Bitcoin price and higher lows in the RSI momentum indicator. This led to a big pump to the upside once again. But now with that pump to the upside, we actually closed back inside this symmetrical triangle. And personally, I'm not looking for some kind of move back to the downside and consider that as being a part of that symmetrical triangle. So I'm just going to turn this into a simple line of resistance, and we are just going to fade out this level of previous support. What we are left with is a falling wedge pattern that has not yet broken out. So currently we're trading below this descending line of resistance, sitting at about 106.2K. This is trending down over time. And we do have this level of support to the downside as well, sitting at about 98K. For now, this hasn't broken out yet, so I'm just going to keep an eye on this. And you may have noticed as well on this RSI momentum indicator, we are still trading below this descending trend line. So before I can even possibly flip bullish on Bitcoin on this higher time frame here, at the very least, I need to see a confident break above this descending line of resistance. Typically, if we do end up breaking out to the upside though, good things tend to happen for Bitcoin. We tend to reach into overbought territory after that once again. For example, you can see that right here, we were in a very extended downtrend here recently. And after breaking the downtrend in the RSI, we shot up to that overbought territory once again. You can see that this breakout also corresponds to this breakout here in the charts, and this was about a 30% move to the upside that we saw after that. In terms of a price target for this falling wedge pattern, that basically depends on where we actually end up breaking out. For example, if we break out tomorrow, then the price target would be about 115K. But for example, if we now see a rejection from that descending line of resistance and break out at a later point, then the price target is going to be a little bit lower. Something else to consider is the fact that we are currently trading inside a big level of resistance, sitting from 105K all the way up to 107K in the Bitcoin price. So if we do end up seeing a rejection, likely we're going to fall into this big level of support, sitting from 103 all the way down to 101.5K. And again, even if we were to see some kind of rejection to the downside right now, so long as we're not breaking down below this descending line of support, technically we are still just trading inside this falling wedge pattern, which is a bullish bias pattern. So it is more likely to eventually break out to the upside at some point. Although as with any bullish breakout, what we are looking for, guys, is candle closes outside of the pattern. Besides that, we are looking for an increasing amount of volume on that breakout. And lastly, although this is not always guaranteed, we are looking for some kind of breakout, retest, resumption type structure. This isn't guaranteed, but the other two are very likely if we are actually seeing a bullish breakout. For example, if you're seeing a move above, but not that volume coming in, then this increases the chance of a fake out. Either way, that is of course not financial advice. I'm simply telling you what I'm seeing in the charts, and you can do with that information what you like. Now, I want to give you guys a bit of a game plan on the much lower time frames, the immediate short term here. For example, this 2-hour time frame, because notice how we had this descending channel pattern here, but we already broke out of this. So for now, this isn't the active pattern. Although there is another potential pattern hidden inside of this, which is a falling broadening wedge pattern. And in order to confirm that it is indeed a falling broadening wedge, you would need to see a rejection from this level of resistance sitting at about 106.9K in the Bitcoin price. Do keep in mind that this does slowly trend down over time, but overall, for breaking out here and then seeing a rejection from this falling broadening wedge, then likely we are getting a pretty severe move to the downside in the short term, because as you guys who have followed me for quite some time know at this point, one of the characteristics of a broadening wedge is that the price gets more and more volatile over time, shooting to the top and bottom of this pattern until it eventually either becomes too wide or the pattern breaks out to the upside. Now, in the case that we do end up breaking the top side of this pattern, the price target would roughly be 108.9K, although for now it is a little bit early to confirm that. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. If you want to get the update tomorrow, I'm definitely making another video tomorrow. So make sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications on so you do not miss any of these important update videos. Next, taking a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map. First of all, on this 2-week time frame, notice how right now we do have a bunch of liquidity to the upside. For example, at around 106.6K and even as high as about 110K in the Bitcoin price. And for example, if we zoom in to this 3-day time frame, notice how right now we have big liquidity to the upside, again at around 106.5K, but we also have liquidity to the downside at 104.3K. So taking a look at this pattern then, if we end up sweeping a bunch of liquidity here and then reverse to the downside, we do end up seeing that rejection. For example, well, in that scenario, we would take out the upside and the downside liquidity, which does not seem like a crazy idea in my personal opinion. In the case that you don't know, typically the Bitcoin price gets attracted to where there is the most liquidity on this chart. And right now there is liquidity to the upside and to the downside. So this scenario does seem to make the most sense for me personally, although of course the invalidation of this is of course simply breaking through this descending line of resistance, because at that point we do have a price target to the upside in between this point of the breakout up until 108.9K. Lastly, for this Bitcoin liquidation heat map, let's take a quick look at the 1-year time frame, because we have big liquidity to the downside as well as to the upside, although most of the liquidity is sitting to the upside at about 111K. Now, as I already mentioned a couple of times in my videos, I think it is highly unlikely that these bears will go unpunished for shorting Bitcoin in a bull market, but that still remains to be seen. In my personal opinion, it is very likely that we are eventually going to take this out, although of course I cannot know how deep this move to the downside is first going to be before we end up sweeping that level of liquidity. That is actually exactly why I cover the technical analysis as well as the liquidity analysis to get a better idea of what we can expect next for Bitcoin. Now, lastly, let's take a quick look at the Bitcoin ETF flow tables. On Monday, we saw a massive inflow of about $350 million coming into the Bitcoin ETFs. So right now, the Bitcoin ETFs are having an upwards pressuring effect on the Bitcoin price. You can tell from the right side column of this table here, we have seen nothing but inflows for about 2 weeks here. As long as this continues, then again, technically the Bitcoin ETFs are having an upwards pressuring effect on the Bitcoin price. So this has been today's market update. Don't forget to subscribe to CryptoKiki. I will leave a link to this in the pinned comment of this video. But regardless, if you do end up checking out her videos or not, thank you for watching once again, and I will see you tomorrow in the next one.